Hello and welcome everybody to the webinar, All You Need to Know About ESG as a New Reporting Standard. Today, we would like to share with you the information about the underlying ESG-related regulations and international standards, an example of the ESG risk management tool developed by SERIS and SPTF. In addition, the representative of Partner Microcredit Foundation from Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is one of the most progressive microfinance organizations in Europe, will share their practical information about their ESG system introduction into their business model. The webinar is organized as a part of Microfinance Center activities under SIFTA project. Let me talk about our plan for today and housing rules first. Our webinar is planned for about 90 minutes. That will include presentations from our two expert speakers, few polls, and we have also space for questions and answers. The webinar is going to be recorded, and we invite you to keep your cameras on, but please keep your microphones muted. My colleague Joanna Żukowska will be assisting you through chat with any technical issues and make sure our session will go smooth. In case you would like to ask or post question or comment, please do it via chat or raise your hand through the dashboard under the button reactions. And I will invite you to unmute and speak. At the end of the webinar, when you leave the webinar, we would appreciate very much if you stay engaged for additional 1 to 2 minutes to fill in our survey to evaluate the webinar. It is very important for us to receive your feedback. The survey will be open on your screen when you leave the webinar. I have the pleasure to introduce our expert speakers for today, Cécile Lapenu, Executive Director of SERIS, French non-profit organization, pioneer in social performance management in the field already for 25 years. Cécile has a long-term experience with inclusive finance, research, and sustainable development. She's also board member of SPTF, given that since 2021, both organizations operate under a common strategic plan. SERIS and SPTF are champions of interdependent and complementary assessment tools and products, and they are global leaders in social and environmental performance management. Our second speaker, Nusmir Čajić, is Procurement Manager and ESG Officer at Partner Microcredit Foundation from Bosnia and Herzegovina, which offers microcredit services for more than 25 years. They support micro-entrepreneurs, promote women participation in business, and offer easier access to financial services in rural areas. Partner has over 300 employees and operates through 69 branch offices. Nusmir joined Partner in 2008, and he is responsible for implementation of the ESG system, procurement, and asset management in the organization. So he is the right person to tell us how ESG implementation looks in practice of microfinance provider. For those who don't know yet, SIFTA project brings continuity to EASY Technical Assistance Program, the European Investment Bank, under the Invest EU Advisory Hub, reinforces the European microfinance and social enterprise finance sectors and provides support to microfinance and social enterprise finance providers under the window social investment and skills. The support is given through tailored trainings, workshops, webinars, peer-to-peer exchanges, and study visits on a wide range of topics related to financing micro and social enterprises. The project also delivers rating, assessment, and evaluation services provided by Microfinance rating. Let us see about the geographical eligibility. So the applicants who are eligible to apply for SIFTA support must come from EU 27 countries. The time frame of this initiative initially is until December 2024. And as you can see, the beneficiaries of these programs are microfinance providers, banks, non-bank microfinance institutions, and social enterprise finance providers, including investment funds, impact investors, incubators, accelerators, fintechs, and so on. So all those who are giving financial support to micro and social enterprises. The technical assistance team responsible for the market development activities and capacity building services consists of a consortium, which is led by Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, and its partners, the Microfinance Center and European Microfinance Network. As already mentioned, for rating, assessments, and evaluation services, the partner in the project is an MF rating or Microfinance rating. If you would like to get in touch with us, you are welcome to follow these links, which will be in the presentation you are going to receive after the webinar. So you can apply directly with Microfinance Center, or even you can turn directly to SIFTA on the email address, which is mentioned on the slide, where you can find out more about your requests, about your demands. And now it's a time to give a floor to our first expert speaker. Cécile, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pavel. Thank you, MFC and SIFTA program, to invite us to share our experience and share our ideas. I will share my screen first. And okay, we can share the slides after the call because we have plenty of ideas to share. We have simplified a little bit the presentation, but you will have more information also for those who want to go a step further, and we keep in touch if you want. So today we wanted to present you and discuss with you briefly present Ceres plus SPTF, because we had some change recently, as Pavel has just said. Wanted to discuss a little bit where do we stand in the sector with, in particular, financial service provider and impact investors in the regulation and standards on ESG, how to assess and manage key elements of ESG risks, and define and show you how we have worked at Ceres plus SPTF level on the SPI tools for this, and discuss with you and exchange also with partner experience about ESG requirements and reporting and ESG risk management. So briefly, first presentation of Ceres plus SPTF and the standards and tools that we propose. Just for you who know us, and for those who did not know us, we used to be two separate entities, SPTF created in 2005 and Ceres created in 1998 as two non-profit associations. SPTF, the Social Performance Task Force, is maintaining, developing standards for social performance management and managing grant facilities for standard implementation, while Ceres has always been working on developing social audit tools, promoting best practices and building local capacities around the world around those same standards. So we have joined our forces. We remain two separate associations legally, but in terms of operation, we have a common budget, a common strategic plan, common teams. So we are really working together now as Ceres plus SPTF to set the standards and implement the standards. So we have a complete offer and support for the sector, from setting the standards and developing the universal standards for social and environmental performance management, promoting the standards through webinars and trainings and our resource center, helping on assessment with SPI online platform and tools that I will briefly present you. Also improving practices with technical assistance, co-financing, and we are working very closely with MFC in particular to support organization. And then reporting and benchmarking, and with the rating agencies also demonstrating the standards and the implementation of the standards. So the nice part of it is that it's a full range of support from the principles, but also how to implement them. So we are quite proud of providing this full infrastructure. So first of all, before we start in the discussion, we wanted to ask you a first question, because today we will focus on ESG topics, so environmental, social, and governance, and ENS risk management. The first poll for us and for all of you is, how comfortable do you feel with the ESG topics? How aware are you? First of all, you come here, but you don't really know the subject. So it's really by curiosity, or you are a beginner, or you are more advanced, or you are regularly producing, reporting, or involved in ESG risk management. So that's the first poll, just to have a check on where do we stand with the participants on this call. Okay, we are seeing the results. Half of you are beginners, more or less. A quarter don't really know yet the subject. A quarter are more advanced. And few of you are producing regular reporting. So please also feel comfortable to share your experience, or we can also discuss this after the presentation from Partner. Okay, so yeah, most of you are beginners. Some of you are really new to the subject, so sorry for TLA, 3 letters acronyms that we will use a lot. We will try to be as explicit as possible, and we can provide you with additional resources that can be used to work on those aspects. Okay, so maybe yeah, we can share the results. Yeah. Okay. How beginners, and then some quite advanced, and some don't really know yet. Great. Thank you for your answers, and let's try to adapt to the different needs. So first of all, I wanted to share with you an update on the tools and approaches that are proposed by CERIS plus SPTF. Our first signature product are the standards, the universal standards for social and environmental performance management. For those of you who know you also see that the latest update of the standards that have been done last year includes now 7 dimensions on environmental performance management. And for those of you who know also the green index, we are totally aligned. So in SPI 4, the previous version, we had the green index 2.0 as an optional module in SPI. Today, on the universal standards, we have included a compulsory 7 dimension on environmental performance management, which is fully aligned with the green index 3.0, but a shorter version because it's included in the universal standards. So it's how you manage social and environmental performance management. So with those universal standards, you have a complete guide of best practices to help you, financial service providers, and your partners, investors, technical assistant providers, put the clients, the staff, and the environment at the center of all strategic and operational decisions, and align your policies and procedures with responsible business practices. And for your information, we are currently working on digital finance standards. They are pilot tested. If you want more information, you can contact us. So the idea is to have more financial service providers better equipped to achieve their social and environmental goals and to meet the needs of the sector and the regulation. So this is our first signatory product. Then what we have developed together with SPTF is the assessment tools to assess where do we stand in terms of universal standards for social and environmental performance management. So the standards are organized by dimension. You see here the 7 dimensions of the standards, from the social strategy to environmental performance management. All those dimensions are divided in standards and essential practices. And to do assessment tools, we have indicators where each organization can check whether they are compliant or not with the practices expected. So on the assessment, you will answer yes, no, or partially. So you have a score to assess where do you stand in terms of the universal standards. And then you have a roadmap, and you can come back to the universal standards to see all the resources to implement the universal standards. So how does it work today? For those of you who know us, we used to have SPI 4, the 4th version of SPI, aligned with the standards, and Alignus, aligning investor due diligence to the universal standards, which is used by the investor for their due diligence. Now, along the 7 dimensions of the universal standards, we have 3 pathways. One is on the universal standards in general. One is just focusing on client protection, and one is just focusing on green. On the universal standards, we have, you see, Alignus, which is the due diligence tool, and we have SPI 5 now, which is the full complete audit of all the universal standards. But as you see, we have also ESG risk tool, which is a subset of Alignus, to assess just where you stand in terms of implementation of basic ESG risk management and how do you comply with ESG regulation, in particular European SFDR, Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. And if you want to go really in depth, you can use SPI 5 full, which is the full subset. Our tools are like Russian dolls. The ESG risk is the smallest Russian doll, and then you can increase to go up until SPI 5 full. On client protection, you have 2 tools as financial service provider. Client protection commit, if you want to start on the client protection pathway, and client protection full, which is the full standards of the client protection certification. And it is included in SPI 5 full. So you have all the indicators and details required for a certification. And if you want to just focus on green, you can just do the dimension 7 as focus green and just focus on this dimension. So you see now that we have a full range of tools. And for the subject of today, ESG, you can use ESG risk, which is the smallest Russian doll, to start with ESG risk management. So the idea is to have tools that are for management. So it's the first use of SPI tools really to manage and improve practices, but it's also to streamline reporting. So you may have requests from different investors, regulators, donors, and some of your IT or finance guys are getting a little bit crazy in reporting. So we try to standardize reporting across actors and making sure that you can, for example, report in line with the European Union SFDR regulation, Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, that is requested from some of your investors. Just a few words on, so as I told you, we have updated the universal standards last year in 2022. And we have adapted and aligned our tools and platform with the new standards. We have launched SPA Online version 2 in January 31st. We are quite happy to see a great momentum around the platform with 268 unique audits real audits created from February to May, with a good uptake of the platform. A number of real audits being created every day, and also lots of audits created for tests, training. So feel free to use them. If you create an account, it's for free, and you can test tools and approaches. Here I share with you the slides. I won't go into detail, but I just wanted to let you know that most of the tools used for now are SPI 5 Alignus and ESG risk. So those two tools that are driven by SFDR regulation, investor requesting you and your partners to collect ESG data, and also 35% of SPI 5 full, which is, as you have seen, the full complete audit. So we are very happy to see also commitment to the full audits. On the client protection, we still have to develop them and advertise them. It's the first time the client protection tools are available online. It used to be in Excel, so there is a change to be adopted. And what I really wanted to show you also is the tools created by region, with 27% coming from Europe and Central Asia. And it was not the case before. ECA was a little bit behind. So we are happy to see also Europe and Central Asia being very active on the new platform. So welcome and bravo to all of you. So those are the tools. I can do a demo at the end if you want. But let's go now really on our subject, on the concepts of ESG. And feel free also to ask questions on the chat box if you have any questions or comments or requests or doubts. So before we go into our subject, really let us know who is asking for ESG data. And maybe you can have multiple answers. Maybe for now, you are not asked for ESG data. Maybe it comes from your board, your shareholders, your equity investors requesting at the board level to collect and report on ESG data. Maybe it comes from your senior management. Maybe it comes from your debt investors and lenders. Maybe it comes from your national or European regulators, or maybe it comes from other. Can you let us know who is asking for ESG data on your sector? Okay, we see debt investors and lenders as the first demand for 3/4 of you, but also board and shareholders a little bit, senior management a little bit, regulators not directly at least. Okay. Yeah, so it's mainly driven by debt investors, lenders, and I can totally understand given the requirements from the SFDR regulation. So 3/4 come from debt investors and lenders, and then shareholder, equity investor, board. And the idea of SERIS plus SPTF and our work with MFC and with all of you is also to make sure that this requirement in terms of reporting also make sense for the financial service provider, and that you can use it to take informed decision and really conduct social and environmental risk management. So thank you very much for your answer. Maybe we can stop the and share the results. So as you see, the main demand comes from debt investors and lenders, also board, shareholder, equity investor, and a little bit from regulators. But and few of you are not asked for now, but you see demand growing. Maybe for those who have answered other, you can put on the chat box who you have in mind, because maybe we have forgotten some key demand or drivers for ESG data. Okay, so thank you very much for your answers. It's very useful to know also where the demand comes from and how we can align with this demand, but also make sense of all of this. Tiny reminder on ESG versus impact, and I put in the slide the link with the paper that has been written. We thought it could be interesting. Okay, I think that was the results. Now I can stop. Okay, sorry. So in terms of ESG, we are really on the do no harm aspect on environmental, social, and governance. It's really a framework to check environmental, social, and governance risks. And we want to make a slight distinction with impact, because we say impact investors have to report on ESG risk, but impact investors try also sometimes to go a step further and having really a strategy on how to promote impact and how to make sure that they have a positive impact on their customers. ESG faces fiduciary scrutiny, and in particular with regulation. Impact framework is more voluntary aspect to say, okay, I want to do good, I want to go more into impact support. ESG now is really compulsory by regulation and will be more and more the case. But it's first a risk mitigating approach. Do no harm, protect the environment, protect your clients, protect your staff. While impact is, of course, a risk mitigating approach, but also an opportunity to provide other products and services and a more focused approach on the do good aspect. ESG is generally a financial first framework, or at least it applies for any organization, whatever their social strategy and social mission. While when you are in the impact investing and impact driven organization, you equally weight financial, social, and environmental impacts. So not all ESG funds are impact, but all impact funds must be ESG compliant, and any fund must be ESG compliant now. So that's a required framework for sustainable development. What we also wanted to present on this framework is the basic concepts of ESG around double materiality and sustainability risks. So there are two different lenses. The outside-in perspective, how the ESG factors impact your company, how droughts can ruin agricultural crops, how damage to buildings can be done through flooding, how can regulation ban sales of diesel cars, so not necessary for financial service provider, but we may have constraints on what we can finance or not finance. And this outside-in sustainability risks analysis also helps you understand how your clients are vulnerable to environmental threats and climate change, and how therefore it's impacting your portfolio. But the main aspect for you is how you will protect your clients against vulnerability to climate change, vulnerability to environmental threat. And then there is the inside out perspective, how you as a company impact on ESG factor, how you may dump hazardous waste, how you may violate human rights, how you may have frauds in terms of taxes that you have to pay, etc. So the PI, the principal adverse impact indicators that are required, for example, from the SFDR, the European regulation on ESG, is focusing on those minimum standards on inside-out perspective. On the universal standards and the approach by Ceres plus SPTF in general, we take both aspects, because we want also to promote and guide organizations to protect their clients against vulnerability. On the inside-out perspective, the financial service provider will assess the adverse impact on social and environmental risks from the organization and from its clients also. So you will see that on the SFDR reporting, for example, you are supposed to report also at your portfolio level what you have as an impact as an organization, but what your portfolio of clients can have as impact on the environmental and climate change. Okay, so those are the two aspects that are taken into account on ESG sustainability risk assessment. Today, we will focus more specifically on the European Union Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, SFDR. Tomorrow is the last day for investors to report. So you may have been asked to share information with your investors. You will be asked anyway to share information. And if you are not subject to SFDR, you may also be subject to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or CSRD, which is related to EU companies and with mandatory ESG disclosure also. So anyway, you will have to report on ESG, and it's important to know a little bit what it requires. On SFDR, it started in 2019. It's compulsory this year. First deadline for reporting for investors is June 30, 2023, tomorrow. So it's why you may have been asked to report. SFDR disclosure regulation sets
Seems like we lost Cecile for a moment. Let's just see if she can reconnect right away. Okay, so let's give her a second. She's connecting through her cell phone. Something unexpected happened. We apologize for this inconvenience. Otherwise, we continue with no smear, and then Cecile can continue to finish her presentation.
Oh, you want me to step in? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, give her, just a few seconds to connect.
Okay.
I talked to her and she's connecting through mobile phone. So I think if we can continue with her presentation, we can put on actually the presentation she has.
Oh, we can wait a minute or two.
Yeah. Please, let's do this, because I think it's a good way to introduce the topic on which you basically follow up with your practical example. So it would be nice if you have this general introduction of the concept of the
Yeah, sure.
principles, and also of the articles which are important and which differentiate basically demands on reporting of individual entities within the regulation, which is valid within EU, but also the Sustainability Reporting Directive, which basically will impact many other entities. So as of now, it is directed for financial institutions, including the banks, insurance companies, investment funds, lenders. But in near future, all these demands for reporting are coming down to other entities.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we are trying to introduce this subject to people, be aware that this is something which is going to impact them, influence them in future, and they need to get ready to be able to start to collect this information and report, monitor and report to their authorities and to, regulators and whoever is going to receive the authority to report and to collect the information. So that's where we stand as of now, and when in future, many other institutions and companies, SME companies, will be forced to start to deliver this information.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so it sounds like we are not succeeding for a moment. Other than that, I could also put her, through my mic and run the presentation on her behalf. So that could be also a solution to this situation. Okay, let me just give a last attempt and then we continue with you. All right?
All right.
All right, I suggest,
I'm so sorry. I don't know,
Okay.
It's always when it's very important not to be cut that we are cut. So I'm so sorry.
Okay, we survive, Cecile, so let's go on.
Okay.
And we apologize for this inconvenience.
Yeah, I'm
so
very
shall
sorry.
Shall we share your presentation?
Yeah,
or,
because I cannot share it.
Okay.
Or you give me the right to share the. I don't have the right anymore, so maybe I connect it as a animateur, à désactiver partage écran. Okay. Okay, yeah, now I can share. I'm
All right.
Going back to my presentation. Sorry about that. So at least I hope you had time to think about ESG and what it will require. So let's go a little bit faster now to give some time also to Nusmir to present, but I won't go into details of all the requirements from SFDR, but just to let you know that the requirements on SFDR, for example, is to report on principal adverse impact that are a list of sustainability indicators related to environmental and social issues. In particular, focus is on human rights, bribery, bribe solicitation, extortion, taxation, and also all the environmental issues. So you have to report on this, but also make sense of all of this in terms of social and environmental risk management. So our objective when we have worked with the SPTF and the Social Investor Working Group was really to integrate ESG risk in the universal standards to help report on this, but also have in-depth discussion on the indicators, definition, data, to make sense of all of this, integrate them on the tools, and discuss how, when data is very complex to produce, how we can use proxy providers, for example, on the green gas emission, and how to use it, pilot it, and help financial service provider to report on all this information. So now on the tools, and if you want to test and use the ESG risk tool, you will see the type of indicators and concepts that are used around environmental and social governance to really report and manage social and environmental risks. Maybe we can skip the poll never mind. If we have time, we can ask this at the end, but I don't want to take too much time due to the cut of my connection. I wanted to just go into some indicators and why we have those aspects integrated on the ESG framework. First of all, on the environmental issues, there are all the issues around climate change. So how to mitigate greenhouse gas emission, but also how to protect clients against vulnerability. On the green gas emission, organizations are supposed to report on scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, which is quite complex because scope 1 is really the direct green gas emission of you as an organization. And also on scope 2, your emission due to the electricity consumption. But scope 3 represent the emission at your portfolio level. So if you invest in agriculture, if you invest in transportation, what are the emissions that are produced by your portfolio, which is quite complex. So the way we help organizations to report on this is first of all to understand and to detail your portfolio segmentation. So we use the nomenclature of economic activities so that you can report on what share of your portfolio is in agriculture, what share of your portfolio is in manufacturing, and if it's more than 5% of your portfolio, you detail at the level 2 of the NACE nomenclature, so that you have, first of all, an identification of the portfolio which is risky. And for this, you can use IFC or FMO fact sheet, for example, and Nusmir will explain us how they work with partner on classification and management of risks. But at least having a detailed portfolio segmentation helps identify the risks. And then you can share this with your investors who can calculate proxies on what does it mean in terms of green gas emission. So you don't have to calculate it directly, but you provide your portfolio segmentation so that the sector can understand in which sector you invest and what are the risks and what are the green gas emission. So that's the first aspect on the scope 1, 2, 3 pies from the SFDR reporting. On environmental issue, there are the climate, but there is also the risks around biodiversity, overexploitation, deforestation, degradation, and the loss of natural resources. The sector says we are towards a 6th mass extinction with the collapse of the ecosystem balance. So it's quite frightening if we look at this in detail. What can we do as financial service provider? We can be conscious of this, and we can also work on biodiversity. We know that it's a fragile ecosystem that we have to protect. So we try and identify finance activities causing harm to biodiversity. Nusmir will explain, for example, how they categorize by sector. We can identify whether branches are near biodiversity sensitive areas, or if you are investing in agriculture, for example, what can be the impact. And then you can assess or develop as financial service provider the policies relative to the protection of biodiversity. And here I put some links, for example, which identify where, in which country there are some biodiversity sensitive areas that you are responsible for protecting also, avoiding, for example, agricultural extension, deforestation in those areas. So that's an aspect of, okay, this is very important for the regulation, but this is also very important as an organization to be able to identify and protect biodiversity. The third aspect on environmental issues is pollution, use of chemical products, solid waste, hazardous waste, and what are the impact on biodiversity, on human health and biodiversity. So here again, as a financial service provider, you have to have key elements on ESG checks around emissions to water, for example, hazardous waste, and also taking into account the impact on your clients, on the health of your clients. So awareness raising, sensitization for your clients. So those are the three aspects on environment that are very important to take into account for reporting, but beyond reporting, for management of environmental risks. On the social aspects, you are supposed to verify that you are not violating the UN Global Compact principles or OECD guidelines, in particular around consumer protection, labor, tax evasion, anti-money laundering laws. And so as financial service provider, you should have processes and mechanisms to ensure compliance with those principles. So you will see that on the ESG risk tool, for example, we have questions about how do you protect against child labor? How do you ensure gender equality at work? And how you work with your staff representative about health and security and safety issues also. So there are plenty of questions around those aspects and checking whether you are in violation. So if you had sanctions for non-compliance with those aspects. There is also an interesting indicator, which is the gender pay gap. If you can calculate the men payroll versus the women payroll, and to compare average men payroll to average women payroll, you calculate a gender pay gap. This is calculated automatically with the ESG risk tool if you have those two information, and it helps you, for example, understand if you have a very high gender pay gap, where does it come from? Maybe you don't have women on the senior management team, or you have only very few women at the staff level or the field officer level. So you can walk a little bit, have benchmarks, and understand a little bit what it means. In terms of social, we include also the client protection standards. It's the minimum basis for financial service provider to prevent over-indebtedness, make sure they are transparent and treat their clients fairly. So this is also part of what we have included in the ESG risk tool as the social aspect of risk management. And in terms of governance, in general, the investors and the governance issue are checking good corporate governance, so independent board members, regular meetings. But we also have one specific aspect, which is board gender diversity. So you can calculate the share of your women board members compared to men. And we also have benchmarks now, so you can understand, you can check. So on our benchmark, for example, we have 24% of women on board. And here we have the example of an investor who had a good score on women on board, 30% of women on board on average on its portfolio, but only 25% of women in management compared to 32% on the benchmark. So they have worked on human resource policies to focus and push for more women at the senior management level, for example. So that's examples. So that's, in a nutshell, few aspects that are checked on ESG risk reporting and ESG risk management. On our tools, as I told you, we have those two tools, ESG risks and Alignus, that are the basis to check and assess where do you stand. And if you use ESG risk, you can be compliant with the requirements of investors to report on SFDR, for example. The idea is really to have a reporting and management tool to check compliance with the basic do no significant harm, to disclose the PIEs, the principal adverse impact from the SFDR regulation, but also to manage ESG risks. So we really want to make sure that you can demonstrate your ESG compliance, but also work on those standards and report and raise awareness for your staff, for your clients, and improve ESG risk management. So then once I'll show you at the end if you want, if we have few more minutes, how to connect and open a tool. But just to finish my presentation, when you do ESG risk tool, you have a dashboard where you will see your scores in terms of environmental, social, related to client protection, social, related to human resource and governance, so that you can see where you stand in terms of compliance with those standards. And then you have the details for environmental. You can put your scope 1 to 3, but also all the required PIs in terms of energy, emission to water, hazardous waste, if you have the information, because sometimes it's provided by proxies. In terms of social, we calculate the gender pay gap, or we check potential sanctions on the principles that you are supposed to apply. And on governance, we have the number of board members, independent board members, and the calculation of board gender diversity. So we want to support the sector in data collection. We have coordinated within organization to be able to have one report by organization that you can share with different interested investors, for example. And we really want to help the sector to use those tools for ESG risk management. So the dashboard to be discussed, challenging indicators, as I said, some of them have to be calculated with proxies for now when it's at the portfolio level. How we can use the classification of risks by sector, and Nusmir will present this, and how we can improve guidance for ESG risk management. And for this, we have plenty of resources also on our resource center on SPI online platform, where you can have guidance on how to implement. So I'll stop here because I want to keep time also for the very concrete example of partner, and we can have discussion at the end maybe. I'll share the slides. I don't know how you share them, Pavel, but we can share the slides.
Thank you, Cecile. We will share them with all the participants, all the registered participants of this webinar after the webinar. So you will all receive the information, all the information and slides. And
do not hesitate to put questions and comments on the chat box. I'll answer after the presentation by Nusmir. If
yeah, my colleague also put now the link to Cerise SPTF website, so you can actually get directly to the SPI online tools website, so you can yeah, go around and see and test for yourself. As Cecile mentioned, these are complementary tools, so it's really, I think, you know, and they are very easy basically to enter and test. Good. So Cecile, thank you. I'm not going to review now or summarize what you have said, but I think the most important message for me is those who wants to really see if they comply with SFDR, right, regulation and indicators. If they go and use your ESG risk tool and they are compliant, then they are sure that they are also compliant with SFDR regulation. So I think on this level, I would just conclude, you know, your presentation and give the floor to Nusmir to talk about their practical experience from the field. Thank you.
Let me just share the presentation.
Yeah, at the bottom you have a share screen button, yeah, as you did before. And yes.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you, SIFTA and MSC. I must say that I am honored to have opportunity to speak about such an important topic for all of us. And I mean all of us. I will talk about the ESG system at the partner, what we have done, what challenges we had, and what else we plan to do. I may briefly repeat some information that Paul has already said about Partner. We have been here for a little more than 25 years. We have 69 offices across the country. The headquarters is here in Tuzla. We have about 300 employees, and we are the one of the 3 leading microcredit organization in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are number 1, though, when it comes to financing energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. Our founder is Mercy Corps, Portland, Oregon, United States. I believe it's important to share some information related to the active portfolio and our clients. We have 40,500 active clients at the moment and 152 million, which is roughly about 78 million euros active portfolio. We are currently place over 30% of loans for energy efficiency every month. And I will talk about our path, how we did it here in the Partner. As you know, the ESG is very important. I believe that everyone knows about the Paris Agreement signed in December 2015. In my opinion, is the most important document in human history. Why? Because it is obligatory for all countries to work together to save the planet. By protecting the planet, we also protect ourselves. But if we put aside the Paris Agreement for a moment, we as individuals and humans have to do much more in our households, at work, our communities, and so on. For me, for example, there is no justification for discrimination, right? For such a large number of poor people who don't have access to drinking water, with such technological progress in the last 20 or 30 years, we have a problem with the waste management. I know that the problem is complex, but I want to say that we all have to do much more. When it comes to implementation of the ESG system in the Partner, it's perhaps important to point out how we did it. The director appointed the project team, the budget, and the time frame. Employees who know the organization and have decision-making powers are appointed to the project team. Our team and the ENOVA work constantly to create the policies, guidelines, manuals, forms, and so on. ENOVA is a leading provider of the environmental, health, safety, and risk-related services in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But we had to tailor everything together for our needs. There are 14 categories. Each category has several questions. The challenge is to implement all this in the organization, for example, software-wise, and simplify a process when processing the loan application, procurement requirements, and so on. I will say something about this later in this presentation. At the beginning of the 2022, we received the technical assistance in order to improve our ESG system. Green Index 3 standards provides a major step forward for the finance sector. For more details regarding the standard itself, you can check on their website. It's quite detailed. On the next few slides, I will say a few words about implementation of the Green Index 3.0 standard in our organization. Like I said, standard is very detailed. It covers everything when it comes to ESG. The standard has 7 categories like social strategy, client protection, committed leadership, and more. We basically received 110 pages of questions to basically compare our organization, our policies, our guidelines, manuals, our way of doing the business with the Green Index standard. But before I say the results, that comparison, long ago, and I have been here for more than 15 years. In our documentation and policies, we have prohibited the financing of activities that have a negative impact on the environment, social issues, and sensitive social groups. You can see on the slide here that the like for example, production of trade and timber and other forested products from the unmanaged forest. So we never financed stuff like that, and the activities that are here on the slides, and much more, of course. So we get the results, and like I said before, we compare our organization. A large number of questions for each of the 7 categories. Like I said, 110 pages of the questions. For example, one of the questions, it was does the organization collect data at least annually to measure whether it's achieving its environmental goals in terms of evaluation, client, or portfolio level adverse environmental impact? That is, Cecile already this mentioned. And you have there greenhouses, gas emission, air pollution, water pollution, and so on. We don't do it. We don't have the resources at the moment, the knowledge how to do it. It's pretty complex, and all this is scope 3 and like Cecile already mentioned, it's pretty much complex to measure it. At the time before implementing several important steps, we scored so before this system and everything that I will show in the next couple of slides, when we compare ourselves with the Green Index 3.0, we score 51%. Scope 1 and the Scope 2 are not difficult to implement. The organization has full control in both cases. Organization can collect data, how much electricity, water, fuel, paper, and so on it consumes, do reports, and take the actions, do something about that. So it's Scope 1 and Scope 2 it's manageable, let's say it that way. The situation is similar with suppliers of goods and services for organization. All that is a Scope 2. Organization or institution can control it. After our assessment, we received the guidelines from the Green Index 3.0 on how to improve our organization, basically our system. Our CEO, Mr. Sinanovic, appointed again the project team to implement guidelines from the Green Index 3.0. Here, I must emphasize how important it is that the people who make decisions know how to important all this is the one that make decisions. In our cases, Mr. Sinanovic is the one who is really pushing all of us. During the implementation, it is important to determine the short and the long-term activities. The rest, like this little picture in the left corner, is a hard and constant work. These are basically guidelines of the Green Index. Some of them, they help us a lot. Start with what should deliver soon to your institution good results at low cost. Sometimes we simply cannot do more at the moment. We don't have the resources. And go step by step, if I may give some advice. We monitor ESG at Partner MKF process. Of course, the most important and complex is our credits process. The slide shows some of the data that we collect and process. HR, gender equality is very important to us. At the moment, we have more female in the organization than male. So out of 300 of us, it's more females than males. When it comes to procurement, for every purchase of goods or services, we systematically assess the ESG risk. We purchase only the latest generation of equipment, for example, the air conditioners, computers, servers, electric and hybrid vehicles, which consume significantly less electricity. This is the example, here's shown the assessment is carried out when we do procurement. It is possible to extract the reports for any procurement period. This part of the assessment is quite simple but effective. So every manager, if they want to order something, they have to check all this. It's of course on our language, but means air pollution, water pollution, stuff like that. Without this assessment, the order is not possible. And there is it's a grade 0, no risks, 3 is a medium risk, and the 6 is a high risk. And if there is 2 medium risks in the 2 categories or 1 high risk in any category, the purchase cannot be done. That cannot be ordered. I mean, we can stop the purchase of any goods. When it comes to staff training, we use all the tools at our disposal: online training, education, articles, and publication. In the right corner, a part of the ESG risk assessment guidelines is shown. It is color-coded. For example, there are businesses that bear greater risk when it comes to the ESG. The task of the loan officer is to make the assessment. Green color means, of course, no risks. The yellow, that the risk is increased, and the red color means that the risk is high. So for each loan that goes through our system, through our software, I will show in the next slides, next slides, how they do it. But they have like a guideline. They pay attention for every business that we finance. It's a color coded where they need to pay attention more than other businesses. This assessment is scope 3, refers to the potential damage that our clients can cause with the loan that we provide for them. Partner performs systematic assessment for ESG risk through our processing software for each loan that is proceed. So the loan officer, before its loan approved, it has to go through this number of questions, 14 categories, and I think 20 or 25 questions. Assessment is very detailed. In order to make assessment as efficient as possible, the answers to the questionnaire are predefined. The loan officer will proceed the category question only if he has a reason to do so. If there is potential ESG risk. At this stage, if the ESG risk is high for any of the 14 categories, the loan officer may reject the loan application, and we can prevent potential damage. Other way around, the scope 3 is very complex. Actually, it becomes problematic when we approve the loan, for example, because at the moment there was no ESG risk, and later on we determine that, for example, certain damage was done. That's the scope 3 that Cecile mentioned. How to measure it, evaluate it, record it, and so on. Many resources are needed to carry out these activities. At the moment, we do not have the answers. As far as I know, no one does, but we are working on it. I mean, to do simple assessment and collect data. For the 1 or 2 cases is not problem, but if you do on the larger scale, it's kind of problematic. This is some practice that we do. We monitor electricity consumption in all of our 69 offices across the country. All of our vehicles have a GPS system that calculates fuel consumption. We no longer print paper unless it's absolutely necessary. It's a part of digital transformation. And if we print, our printers count the number of printed pages. Collect data. The carbon footprint is input for us in Partner to take actions. We use this UNDP calculator. It's pretty much simple but effective. You simply enter the data in the CEO calculator, which is developed by the UNDP. It will show you the CEO footprint of the organization. And as some measures with planting trees across the country and so on. This slide shows energy efficiency measures we have implemented together with our clients, loans that have been dispersed for the energy efficiency so far. Here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the vast majority of the houses in the rural areas, the fuel for the space heating is a fossil, primary coal. So it's crucial to insulate the houses, windows, and buildings insulation so that they consume less coal to begin with. We have been doing our homework when it comes to ESG since 2012. Over 54 million euros we disperse energy efficiency loans. Energy efficiency active portfolio is close to 20 million euros. And the portfolio share is close to 26% at the moment. Our plan is that portfolio share is over 50% for energy efficiency. In the plans of our loan officers, the focus is on the energy efficiency loans. And in the end, I want to say that we have done a lot of work. A lot of work is still ahead of us. What are benefits of our efforts? Growth of active portfolio. We have become recognizable when it comes to the green financing. Our clients, as well as potential clients, if they want to buy a heat pump, replace windows, building insulation, improve heating system, they immediately think of us, think of Partner. When it comes to the ESG green financing, we have recorded growth so far. We accepted it to remain so, and we have had no negative experience. That's my presentation. I push fast, so I think 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Nusmir.
Yeah.
I would like to give the floor to our participants if they would like to share their experience, or do they have any, if you have any questions to our speakers. I would like to open now the floor for the questions. And feel free. I mean, we are here a small group of people, so don't be shy. Let us try to answer your questions. We saw that the number of you is at the beginning of the journey. You probably have plenty of questions regarding implementation of ESG. So I'm sure you must have many questions which you struggle to answer for yourself, and internet is not always friendly, you know, and you are not finding the answers. So now you have the opportunity to ask directly, you know, our expert speakers who have really good experience. All right, we see Nargis have a question, but you need to raise your hand in order to I can enable you to speak up, or you can write your question to the chat. Meanwhile, while you do so, let me ask a question from Cecile. Could you tell us if some sectors are not financed anymore or differently, for example, in agriculture? Nusmir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could you try to reply a question from Cecile? If you could tell us if some sectors, after you started to implement your new approach, the ESG system, if some sectors are not financed anymore or differently, for example, in agriculture?
We do finance the agriculture. We didn't have any so far that high or medium or high risks. So far we finance everything as usual, including the agriculture. Yes, our loans are not that high that can impact so much for now.
Mm-hmm. And are there any other sectors or specific fields where you were forced to limit your exposure because of the criteria or indicators which you started to follow up?
So far, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Very good. Maybe can you tell us? I mean, since you really engage with this consultancy team to start to implement ESG system, could you maybe mention about the timeline? How long did it last until you could start to see some first, fruits, results of the project?
Like I said, with energy efficiency in Partner is from 2012, but in the last 3 years, 2021, we worked with Enova to let's say build the guidelines and material and everything, and in 2022 we implemented in our systems. Challenge is put all that in the system software wise to work, to make assessment easier, to put everything on the one place. Let's say when the loan officer starts to process the loan application, it has everything in the software, in the system, to evaluate it, to assess the risks, and eventually to approve so everything is a pretty much problem to integrate it in the systems, all the guidelines and the rules and the indicators, the risks, so they can grade the risks through the software. So not to do on the paperwork, or not to make the more work than it should, let's say like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you say you started to cooperate with them in 2021 and in 2022 you already started to implement the system into your business model, into MIS, etc. Can we say it took whatever, half a year or 1 year until you were ready to implement the project fully?
Let's say that 2021 we had all on the paper how it's supposed to do. 2022 was the period to implement it, to integrate it, all that in the process, in the procurement, the credit process, and the HR, the rest of that. So we can pull out reports and everything. It's let's say automated.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
So 1 year for the material and everything, 2021 and 2022 like implementation, all that through the system. So in the beginning, 2023, we have all this.
So just to give a good idea to others, it took basically up to 2 years to be able to have everything sort of automated in your model.
Yes, let's say that way. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so we have the question from Nargis now: how to calculate CO2 emission? Do you have any tools that may to calculate CO2 emissions?
A question for me or for Cecile?
I think for you. I mean, for now, given that you basically do this already.
The scope 1 and scope 2, like as in one of the slides, you first you have to collect the data, like a fuel consumption for the vehicles. We have over 150 vehicles across the country. You have to have a tool like we do. We have a GPS tracer who calculated consumption of the fuel, and if you have that input, how much fuel is burned throughout the year, or how much electricity you spend throughout the year. We use this UNDP calculator. You simply put the amount of fuel that you, let's say, burn throughout the year, or quarter, or half a year. Same is with electricity, water, and basically calculate it for you. You will get the result in the CO2 footprint. How much organization when it comes to scope 1 or scope 2, let's say, made damage to the environment. Scope 3, I said again, like Cecile said, it's more complex to calculate it, what our clients do to the environment. And for now, we don't have a tool or answer to that. But we hope we're gonna make some changes soon. I mean, we have input, we have how much clients we have, where our loans go to agriculture, to everything. We have all that inputs, but we have to just figure out how to collect them and calculate it.
All right, thank you. Cecile, can you add any experience from your tools?
I think for your information on scope, so on scope 1 and 2, there are calculators available. So Nusmir used UNDP. I think I put a link. I'm not sure it's the right one, but maybe we can identify the tool used by Partner. On scope 3, as we said, for now it's very complex, but you may have some ideas with some of your investors who have to report on the SFDR. They go through JIM, Joint Impact Model, or the Impact Institute with the share of the portfolio in different sectors. So it's proxies that are calculated, and the models are being updated and improved to make sure that it's relevant. But there are some proxy calculation to give an idea of the impact of one portfolio in terms of green gas emissions. So it's work in progress, and it's food for thought also for the sector to see, okay, if I invest a lot in agriculture and I am in this country, this is the impact, or how can I offset some aspects? As Nusmir said, Partner is planting some trees, some will reduce some investment in some very traditional agriculture, for example, to support more sustainable agriculture, for example, more water tank, more. So yeah. So that's a work in progress, and raising awareness also on the impact of the portfolio on CO2 emission. What we also say at Ceres Plus SPTF level is that we should not spend too much time in calculating scope 3, but really raising awareness and protecting vulnerable clients. So we have to find the right balance between calculation, reporting, and actual support to vulnerable clients. So that's a balance to find.
Okay, thank you, Cecile. All right, we have another question from Raghuram. How did you choose energy efficiency loans? Did you conduct any survey of client needs for green finance?
Yes, here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have plenty of room, like for building insulation, change the windows on the houses, to upgrade to the new windows that keep the heat in, stuff like that. Yes, we did surveys, and we know how much the room is there to finance all that. Especially in the rural areas, there are plenty of houses that needs to be, let's say, insulated.
All right, and just a question: if you conduct any survey, or does it come naturally, through the work of your loan officers who are, locally well known, and they know their clientele, potential clientele?
There's a statistics agency in the Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we use their information, and also UNDP also does some survey for this, so we know there's plenty of room for financing.
Okay,
this kind of loans, yeah.
All right. We have another question from Ivan. How do you work with elevated ESG risk clients? Do you reject them or disperse and monitor somehow those clients? So how do you deal with such a clients?
Like I said, we start with this risk assessment on January 2023. Like I said, for now we didn't have a high risk client. And I suppose if something like that happens, we probably reject the loan, or we will assess thoroughly and even maybe approve the loan, but some guidelines give to the client how to manage that risks. But for now, we didn't have a such situation.
Okay, thank you. I don't see other question, a new question coming through the chat. Maybe another question from myself. This is ESG is a huge and important topic, and maybe if you have any information, how this topic is organized and dealt with at the board level of the organization, because I think it's really important that really the supervising level, of the organization is very much aware and focus what the organization is supposed to do in this area.
As I mentioned in my presentation, our CEO, Mr. Sinanovic, he's the one that really pushed all this. So even if myself or project teams, let's say, do some other regular work job that we have and the obligations, he's the one that really pushed this. And did you finish this? Did you prepare this? So he's the one, and that's like I said, it's very important that on the top level, the boards or CEOs, the ones that push this topic and to basically build a system to work. Yeah, without him or without persons who make decision in any organization or institution or company, you will not. I mean, the regulations will push all this, and it will come time that they have to implement it, maybe 2, 3, 5 years from now. But if you want to go forward, the answer is that the board or the top level management must push all this.
And Nuzmir, if I understand well, you say for now, so it took about 2 years to implement the system. Now you are able to check on the risks, but you have not rejected any loans because you don't reach a high risk level, but you have developed new products. So for now, it has been more an opportunity and a control to avoid risks, but that has not reduced your activities because you are in the safe side. So you are just protecting to avoid going towards a riskier sector. But for now, I see it more as a real opportunity because you develop new products than constraints.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice message also.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is energy efficiency loans, are they provided on standalone or bundled with other loans?
We have a special line of loans from the GGF or EBRD. We have returns on those loans. So for example, if he gives the loan for the insulation, the houses and the windows, the client have a return on the investment, but the money must be for that purpose. So there is a loans from the creditors just for that purpose, for energy efficiency or energy renewable loans. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, no questions in chat. Would anybody who is present here with us willing to share their experience, how it goes in their institution, or, if you are part of consultancy, how do you deal? What are your experience with this topic, helping others to implement ESG frameworks or systems into their business models? It would be really nice to hear some of the experience as well. Meanwhile, Sabina, The green products have subsidized interest rate for the clients, right? The question.
The interest rate is also.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Please go ahead if it's clear.
Yeah, interest rate is also lower than the other loans, but also there's a return on the investment, basically in the money. For example, if we invest 5,000 euros for insulating the house and replacing the windows with the energy efficiency windows, the client will get return like 1,000 euros in the money on their account. It's that kind of the
incentive.
Financing.
Yeah. So the
Yes.
incentivized lending.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, then percent is not, but if you invest all the let's say 5 euros, that the 20% is a return. Yes.
Okay. Good. Maybe Cecile, I mean, using the opportunity, we have still a couple of minutes. If you want to show the SPI online platform for those who want to access it and see the resources available, might be a good opportunity as well now while we receive some other questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Nuzmina, maybe if you can stop sharing your screen. And yes, feel free to ask questions in the meantime, but I can just take this opportunity to share how it works.
All right. So as I mentioned, we had a poll where we were asking also to whom do you report the ESG information, and there were some answers to others. So that would be really interesting to hear, who else is demanding this information. It would be nice to hear, I think, for others as well. So they will be aware to whom they might expect to ask, such a reporting. So if any of you responded to this poll, please feel free, to let us know either in chat or just raise your hand and I will let you speak.
Okay, so I think I can just share my screen. Yeah, sorry, I thought. Okay, so let me find. Okay, partager. Okay. So here you see the platform, SPI Online. So that's really the technical platform where you have the resource center where you can find the ICPM guide, for example, to see all the details on all the indicators that we were discussing. If you want to see how to understand the indicator, how to, so here, for example, on dimension 4 on client protection, you can see the indicators on over indebtedness. What does it mean? The provider makes loan decision based on client repayment capacity. What are the resources? What are the source of information? So if you go by indicator, you will see the scoring guidance, how it has been analyzed and how to implement this type of practices. So you have guidance by indicator. And so if you have specific question on ESG, you can go on the SCPM, Social and Environmental Performance Guide. And on the resource center, you can have different resources by thematic, so by social strategy or client protection or governance, by standards with all the standards of the universal standards. So if you want guidance on green, for example, you can go to the dimension 7 here, and you will have guidance, for example, on examples on environmental, social, and governance policies, blogs. Maybe we can share some experience from Partner also, which was great, and also the very positive message that it's more an opportunity than a cost. So here you have the resource center, and then you can research by keywords. On the news, you have blogs, and if you want to know a little bit more, we add this series also of blogs on ESG risk and SFDR reporting that we did. There is, so it's a little bit what I discussed today, but really going into the details of the pies. And you have this in Russian also, for those of you who prefer. There is one of our colleagues from Triodos, Tatiana, who made this same presentation in Russian, so sometimes it's easier. We have experts from different regions who can help also the financial service providers to do their work. And here you can also log in and sign up to have access to the SPA online tools. So you can just sign up with your name and email and password, and then you have your accounts which can be open. And for me, because I am already connected, I can log in here. And okay, I am on the demo website. So when you open your account, you will see, okay. Let me check. It takes sometimes a little bit time. So you will see the different audits that you have done, and you can also create new audits. So you can decide to go for ESG risk, for example. So I think today I have few internet issues because you are supposed to see the different audits. Okay, here it's looking for the audits that have been done on these accounts. And here you can create an audit. So you can test with a mock, so either a real audit or a mock audit. And if you do a mock audit, you can decide to start with ESG risk. So that's the tool that we presented. So you see the different pathway that I presented: social and environmental pathway, client protection pathway, and environmental pathway. And on the SCPM pathway, you have the ESG risk, where you see there it's about 30 indicators. So you can see more in details what it really means and what are really the questions linked to ESG. And as a Partner has done with the Green Index and Universal Standard, you can do a self-assessment also of your practices to see where you stand and if you want to go further. And then, depending on your strengths and weaknesses, you can come back to the resource centers or to the trainings. We have also e-learnings, and 2 modules are for free on the Universal Standard pathway and the client protection pathway. So you have 2 modules here, which are for free in English. And then we will have deeper trainings, but for now you can start with free e-learning on client protection and Universal Standard. So just to let you know about those resources. So the platform is in French, English, and Spanish. As you see, you can also have it in French or have it in Spanish. Maybe one day we will have it in Russian, but it's a question of time and resources. But if there is some interest and demand, why not? We have, as I told you, some resources in Russian and some resources, webinars in Russian, but to be perfectly transparent, it's not the most developed part of our platform and resources, but maybe because we will be working more in the next weeks and months and years with MFC, with SIFTA project also, and environmental and digital approaches, we may see if we need and if there is a value for Russian or other resources. So, okay, this is the Spanish one. I'll come back to the English one, which is the most. And here you have the description of the different tools. Also, if you want to come back and see how the ESG tool works, for example, you can download the tool. And I think on the resource center, we have also some videos. Let me check types. because we have recorded some videos on how to use the platform and the resource center. Yeah, SPI Online video tutorial. So if you check on the videos, you will see that we have videos on how to use SPI Online, tools, how to access and read the results of my audits, and how to find resources on SPI Online. So, and if you have questions, do not hesitate to contact us. We can try and support you.
Thank you, Cecile. I think there's been useful, for the people who would like to try and feel encouraged to try, because as Nusmir explained, it takes really some time to be able to implement the ESG system in the operation. So the sooner you start, the better for the organization. Do we have any questions in chat? No, I don't see any other questions than those we already responded to. Do we have anybody raising hand? No. So it looks like we are getting close to end of our webinar. I would like to thank you to both expert speakers for their really fruitful and inspiring presentations. I think both of them brought really good piece of information for all of us to think about how ESG is currently organized and how it could be approached and what it requires. So we believe that the topic is evolving, and in future we might come up with additional webinar which will be focused maybe on particular area or topic, as today we really approach it from sort of helicopter view and try to give you more a general overview what it is about. And hopefully we see you after the summer. Wish all of you really good summer period, and those who plan their holidays nice rest, and hope to see you, after the summer in a new series of SIFTA webinars which Microfinance Center plans to organize. Please follow our social media and also website, and we hope to see you in next webinars. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day, and see you after the summer.
Thank you.
Yes, see you, and thank you very much. And yeah, we can keep in touch if you have any question.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
And please do not forget to fill out the survey which comes up after you leave the webinar. It's really very short, very brief, but we would still appreciate very much as many people as possible to provide us feedback how and what we can improve for future webinars. Thanks, and bye for now.